Day.
Yes.
Exciting day.
It is exciting, it's busy, and it's all kind of emotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a roller coaster.
I can imagine.
But it's good. I'm happy. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So Pablo, I wonder if I can start by asking, you had made this incredible film, Jackie, and I know that this was a project, this was an idea for this film that was brought to you. Tell me about what struck your interest and why you wanted to tell this story.
Well, I just like millions around the world, grew up admiring her and somehow being very curious on why. I keep wondering, why do we all care so much about her? Why are we following her? Why are we also interested on whatever she does, what happens to her? And I was very curious as well why my mom was so into her. As I grew up, she would cut her hair like her, she would dress like her, and she would just follow her. And if you look at it, they're royals. They have a very discreet life, and they live in privacy, and they don't share many things. But there's something always in Diana that made me feel very curious, and basically is the biggest and more simple question is, why do we care so much? And I guess there might be a lot of answers, but for sure the level of empathy that she had, that everyone would just keep sort of feeling for her. And at the same time, I feel that even though she was obviously in a very particular context in the aristocracy and in royalty, she had something really natural and beautiful and regular and somehow ordinary. And so we can all relate to that and connect with that. And whenever she expressed in public anything that she felt, it was always something that people would feel for her, and would somehow feel that whatever she was going through, it was something that maybe some of us went through as well. And that connection creates an incredibly beautiful character that is at the same time very mysterious and very enigmatic. And that is a wonderful mix for a movie.
Well, and I suppose, the next question really to ask then, based on what you just said, is how do you find an actress to embody that? Was Kristen always very much at the front of your mind? I mean, because that is it's a very unique thing that Diana had, to be both enigmatic and approachable, both, kind of normal and ethereal.
Of course, and I don't know if Kristen has that on her life. I mean, I do, but it's not what we're doing here. But what I do think is that Kristen has a very particular type of mystery and a very approachable element as well. So what she does is that she creates this bridge of empathy and at the same time some distance, because she's sort of experiencing something that we cannot determine. When you have that in front of camera, then you have an audience that is curious. And that curiosity is the first engine for cinema. That you're seeing someone that you don't know exactly what's going on, and she has to carry on with it, and she holds it. And at the same time, I think what happens a little bit with Diana as well, that when they're broken and when they want to share feelings, whether if they want to help someone or if they're asking for help, it becomes an incredible emotional transaction where you feel for her and you feel that sort of emotions that might be felt by someone that is very far from you, in reality are the same things that are happening to all of us. And that created something that, even nowadays is something that we all admire and follow, I guess.
And one of the things that really fascinated me, I remember the day that Diana died. I remember what my country went through.
Me too.
In Britain on the day that happened, and in the weeks subsequent. There is an enormous strength of feeling in the UK, as you know, for Diana especially. And I wonder what you think your kind of the perspective of an outsider brings to telling this story, because we've seen it explored a lot in Britain. I wonder, did you? It's hard to know how to phrase it. But do you know what I mean? That you know, having come from.
Of course, look. I don't think I obviously not, I'm not British at all, but I don't think I represent someone specifically from where I am, which is Chile. I think I represent everyone else that is not British somehow, which is, we all follow and we're very attracted to this sort of modern royal family that has all these ideas around tradition and history, and they can be very discreet, and you don't really know much about them. And so this sort of huge enigma that they create and it's surrounded by, it's broken by someone that could be any of us, that comes in and leaves whatever she lived, and then eventually decides to leave and have her own life. That I don't think you need necessarily to be British to really understand and feel that. For some reason, I'm not sure why, maybe you would know better than I do, the contemporary narrative of the royal family, it's really one of the very first stories ever told. Whatever's going on or whatever happens with the royal family, it's really universal narrative. And the dramas that are in there, whether it's from Shakespeare or Cervantes or Victor Hugo, however, it will be all connected to the same narrative, which is basically a structure that is very complicated, is very sophisticated, and they live in a very strange balance of the privacy and the public world. And that interaction is obviously fascinating. And at the same time, it leads you to the origin story of the fairy tale. We tell fairy tales to our children to make them feel good, to make them go to bed, to make them sleep. And that fairy tale is usually a prince meets a princess, and then they get married, and then they become queens and king, and then they have a family, and they live happy forever. What happens if that just doesn't work, and that is broken? And you see a woman that is entirely broken, you can only feel for her. That's the story that we want to tell.
I was really fascinated to ask you about the tone of the film, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on this, but like weirdly, the film that it reminded me most of in kind of the intensity of tone was The Shining. You know, this kind of character in a house, who feels so alien to everything that's going on around her. And it's a very specific tone that you maintain through the film. I wonder how delicate it was to balance that on set.
Well, we had a great script from Steve Knight. That is it's an act of surgery. You know, it's a very extremely precise, and that was obviously very important. But yet, and then when we shot it, and when we edited, we really tried to keep a very internal rhythm. So we're with her all the time. And we get to understand what are those ghosts that she's carrying on. And this house became a symbolic prison, and somehow she is able, at some point, I don't want to spoil it, but to break free, of course. But yeah, all those hallways, the structure, the building, the paintings, the fabrics, the bathrooms, the tiles, the dresses, the colors, the shotguns, the lamps, the snooker table. All those elements are finally ghosts for her, and they become monsters in her own experience. And for a movie, it's fascinating. And of course, if you, on top of all that, you have someone like Johnny Greenwood doing that fantastic, phenomenal work, then you can have a piece of cinema, hopefully.
Pablo, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Please.
I hope I wasn't trivializing it by saying that. Like it's
Not at all.
I think that's what it really does have that.
Well, if